How are we all doing? So this was a documentary that I filmed in Shetland around about 2017, I think. And originally it was in lots of separate parts, but what I've done is I've combined all of them to make a kind of feature documentary. Shetland is the furthest most island archipelago in the British Isles. It's incredibly rugged, beautiful, and full of wildlife. So in this film, I'm going to show you some of the amazing wildlife, some of the people who work with it, some photography tips, and just what an incredible place Shetland is.
People can get transfixed with the size of cameras and brands, but the reality is the best camera is the one that's in your hand. And today, that's my smartphone. Now I'm going to be trying to go after one of Britain's most beloved birds, the puffin.
Puffins are small seabirds, about the size of a pigeon. They mate for life and reaffirm partnerships by bill tapping. They nest in the ground, often using old rabbit holes. Despite nesting in burrows, they spend most of their lives out at sea. Decreasing numbers of sand eels, their preferred prey, has led to the countrywide crash in puffin numbers.
So this is Hermanus, and there are around 2,000 puffins here, though this number is declining. This is largely due to the decline of sand eels, their preferred prey. Fantastic. The great thing with using a smartphone is that they're nice and compact, they're easy to carry, and we've always got them on us. So if you haven't got your SLR or your bridge camera, you left it at home, you can get some great pictures on a smartphone. Thing to remember is that zooming in too much with them, you're going to lose the quality of the picture. So the best thing to do is to get close to the subject, whether it's a puffin, whether it's whatever, but just take your time, approach slowly, make sure we don't stress the bird out too much, and you can get some really good pictures. The great thing with photographing on your smartphone is that we can share these images instantly. You can upload them to any social media site and show people live the subjects that we're seeing. It's great watching the puffins moving up and down the bank because they're collecting nest material. It's quite comical because they'll try and pull a big tuft out and they can't quite get it all in. But the size of them is what really gets me. They're not big birds, they're quite small, and they have hard life, puffins.
Bryden Thomason is a Shetland-born wildlife photographer and director of Shetland Nature, a wildlife tour company on the islands. He's spent his whole life following its birds and mammals, and one animal in particular captures his imagination: the otter. The Shetland otters hunt by tides, so there's a good chance of seeing them in the day at low water. They hunt various prey, from butterfish to lumpsuckers and even octopus. The female will look after her cubs for a year before driving them away. They rub themselves on seaweed to clean their fur of salt and trap air between it. Otters are normally a freshwater species, so the otters on Shetland have to adapt to a marine environment.
So what is it about otters that get you going, so to speak?
This, just sitting watching this fellow just now is a perfect example, because I mean, to be fair, it's a pretty gloomy, dull Shetland summer's day.
Get the suntan lotion out just yet, no.
No, there's no fear of that. But yeah, you can be watching an otter in the day, just nothing else around us, the wet, the grey. I mean, you're just transfixed on that little mammal out there.
So for people wanting to get pictures of otters, otters? Are there any tips or any ways to go about it?
With otters, more so than so many species, especially with photography nowadays, photographing otters, it's proper old school photography and fieldcraft and subject knowledge comes into it way more importantly to begin with than any sort of elements of technical aspects of photography. But you've got to sort of keep your eye on the otter, because obviously you need to be in position. If, for example, it's foraging like this guy,
yeah,
we would always be trying to keep opposite on the shore, with the wind taking our scent away, and keeping up with that. Sometimes when an otter's on the move foraging, it's no so
they can go at some pace, can't they?
They can when they're on the move, if they're especially if they're coming ashore with prey. With the 2 tides a day, otters can every tide their prey is replenished.
So obviously you've been out hundreds of times, I suppose it's fair to say, photographing otters. Is there one encounter or one picture that you've taken when you've been out that really stands out for you?
I suppose things that I always find are really special is mums and cubs, young cubs particularly, because that's obviously young cubs is so cute. Yeah, absolutely.
So what kind of kit do we need for the job?
You're always, I mean, when folk ask what lenses to bring when we're shooting otters, then I'd always ask them to bring their longest focal length. You know, I mean, a lot of people are shooting with things like the 80 to 400 or the 100 to 400, 200 to 400. These lenses are really good for otters. Sometimes the reach isn't quite enough, but being able to sort of, have that range, have that focal range, you can maybe include a bit of habitat. I mean, in that kind of situation, when an otter's going to be close enough for you to get any sort of wide angle stuff, you're at the stage where you've had to stop shooting anyway, because the shutter, the sort of movement, anything is gonna make them aware of you being there. So you've really got to kind of be careful with that kind of thing. These new mirrorless cameras, they're incredible actually. Yeah. I've been out with a few folk with some of these mirrorless cameras, and it's unbelievable. I mean, just the continuous mode, just they're shooting away on 11 or 18 frames a second, and you can't even. You don't even know they're shooting.
500 that we're using, I mean, that's 10 frames a second, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we couldn't get any wetter if we jumped in the sea right now, so should we get a cup of tea and a bit of cake?
That sounds like a grand idea, yeah.
Let's do it.
Nice one.
Camera controls can be a little bit confusing, with numbers tossed around all over the place, but I'm going to go through the 3 things that you need to know. And the first one is aperture. So the aperture is an iris, and that's located in the lens. Now you can control this through your camera to expand and contract. Now a large aperture is a low number, confusingly, so 2.8 for example is a big aperture, and that lets in lots of light. As a result, you get a shallow depth of field, meaning the background is blurry. This can be great for wildlife because anything distracting in the background can be completely blurred out and all the attention is on the animal that you're photographing. You can go for a mid-range aperture, so more of the animal will be in focus and you'll still have a bit of blur in the background. Or you can go for the landscape photographer's favourite, f/22, where you've got a huge depth of field. The majority of the picture's in focus, so if you've got an animal in a really interesting background, then you might want to show that off. And essentially that's all aperture is, how much of the picture's in focus. And you can control this really easily through your camera. Some of them have rings, More commonly it's digital, and you can choose the aperture that's best going to suit your images. In an ideal situation, it's good to do different apertures and work out which one best suits your subjects, but obviously wildlife doesn't always hang around to let us do that. So the next one is shutter speed. The shutter itself is in the camera, and you trigger that every time you press the button down. Now a fast shutter speed is ideal for getting those shots of birds in action or any wildlife that's moving quickly and you want to freeze it. It works in fractions of a second, so 1/4000th is 1/4000th of a second, so really, really quick. Whereas say 1/30th is 1/30th of a second. So if you have a quick moving subject, it's going to be a little bit more blurry. But you can use this to your advantage and get more artistic shots. So the third and final one is ISO. So 100 ISO is at the beginning. This is the least sensitive, so you'd use this on a bright sunny day. The advantage of using a low ISO is that you get great detail, crisp images and not a lot of noise. Now noise pops up in the images when you use a higher ISO. Say for example 6400, you show a lot of digital noise. It used to be a big problem in the film days, but the reality is with more modern cameras, they can handle it a lot better, and you can use post-processing, such as affinity, to denoise your images and bring them back in line to something more acceptable. It's essentially a question of light on the day. If it's a bright sunny day, we typically use a low ISO. If it's overcast like today, I'd maybe use somewhere in the middle, like 400. And if it was a dark day, or maybe I was shooting at night, I'd use a much higher ISO. Of course, all three of these things work in conjunction with each other. So if you use a big aperture, lets in lots of light, you get a fast shutter speed. The best thing to do is prioritize one of the settings. Work out what you want. Do you want a sharp image? Then you need a fast shutter speed and lots of lighting. Do you want a blurry image? Then you need a slow shutter speed. Work out what you want from your pictures and you'll get great results.
Richard Shucksmith is a marine ecologist based in Shetland, but also an award-winning photographer. His work includes many of Shetland's well-known species, but Richard also works beneath the surface. I met up with him to talk about underwater photography.
So you've been diving hundreds, thousands of times, is it fair to say that?
It is, yeah.
Have you got one encounter that stands out for you?
If you really had to pin it down to one experience, and I wasn't actually diving, I was actually snorkeling at this point, was actually last year managing to photograph a humpback whale underwater.
Wow.
Like I think it was said to be one of the first humpback whales to be photographed underwater in the UK. But actually we found out afterwards, I think there was one in about 1970 or late 70s which was photographed down off the south coast.
There's always one, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. So we might have to stop saying that. But yeah, to actually get in the water with a great whale, you know, the great big humpback whale in UK waters in my own backyard and manage to see it and photograph it underwater was something really special.
So it's good that you mentioned the humpbacks, because they're a classic example of how conservation can be helped by photography, because wasn't that humpback found a little bit further away than Shetland?
Yeah, it was really interesting this last autumn in Shetland. Well, it was actually November, December. This group of sort of four humpbacks in Coalgrave Sound, but we think at one point there could have been up to 10 different humpbacks around Shetland. These four particular humpbacks spent probably about 5 weeks in Coalgrave Sound. And obviously that time of year in Shetland we get a lot of windy, rough weather, so we were all looking for calm days. And I was away this particular day in Bryden. Good friend and colleague got a calm day and got out on the boat. I managed to photograph one of the tail flukes really well. So then he sent it off to several researchers to get a match. And actually they found a match for this particular whale right down in the Caribbean. And it turns out it's the first record for the UK of a humpback travelling all the way down to the Caribbean to where it breeds or gives birth. So it was a first really for the UK, and it was a great way of showing how photography can help understand science and movement of animals.
I think it's good because I think people often just associate photographers as trophy hunters, almost going out to get all these shots, but it's nice to see it being used as a tool for conservation.
Yeah, I think photography is very powerful in many different ways. Like the trophy shots, we all try and get trophy shots. I suppose that's probably the majority of photographers want to do, is go out and nail a great shot. But I think there's been a big shift in the last few years, going from sort of more trophy hunting type shots, if you'd like to put it that way, or creating one-off great images, to sort of telling more stories. So creating a group of images what tells a really good story about a habitat or about a particular environmental problem or an ecosystem or a species.
So Shetland's full of all these amazing wildlife, but the last couple of years the orcas have really been showing well, because they've always been here, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't know, like it's an interesting one. Like, have orcas been showing well the last 2 years, or have we all just become, because of the onslaught of social media, we've all just become a lot more aware of it? Actually, with social media, we all get a chance to see it. Like before, it might be some fisherman or someone walking the coast seeing an orca, and how do they tell anyone? They don't, or they might message a few friends and then it just gets lost. But with social media now, like the Shetland orca sighting page has about 10,000 members, so, and if anything gets sighted, it's posted on there instantly. So, instantly 10,000 people can suddenly see that there's orcas, going through Lerwick Harbour or going around. So it's become a lot more accessible for everybody living on Shetland. And I must admit, it does seem like these last couple of years, last summer was amazing summer, and we've just had an amazing 10 days really here in Shetland.
Yeah, I was watching them just up the coast not long ago. I mean, amazing to see them.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Like killer whales, like they are a top predator of the sea. They're most amazing animals really. There's nothing else which, they have no predators. There's, nothing actually attacks or does anything to an orca. Orca, I think, is the only marine mammal, as far as I know, which will actually attack sharks.
The other day, I was surprised how many people there were. People running out the shops and like crazy down to the coastline. And you don't have to have a pair of bins either. They come quite close, don't they?
Oh no, you almost, like I call it orcamania. Like it just goes crazy, the island does. And they're that close sometimes you feel like you can reach out and touch them. They're that tight to the shore. And actually, just talking earlier about phones, one of my best experience with orcas was when they came around this headland and ended up in this little gully, sort of a 5-metre gully between the shoreline and this island. So there's just a gap like this, 5 metres wide. And they ended up in this gully, and they were too close to photograph with my camera and my big lens. I'd run down there with a big lens, and then I thought, well, what can I do? And all I can do is film them on my phone. And so I used my phone to film them, and got some amazing footage. It was really great because they kept spy hopping to see what I was doing. So they just sat there in front of me, 4 of them going, vroom, vroom, vroom. Yeah. It was
so
really
basically,
good.
if you want to photograph orcas in Shetland, get on social media.
Well, basically, yeah, because like you couldn't run a tour in Shetland. The problem is they came here. They was here for maybe 5 to 10 days. Really good sightings most days, and then they were seen a week last Monday, and they've disappeared since then. And there's the odd report of them offshore, but apart from that, they're not in the coast, like not in close enough for people to watch. So it's really hit and miss. People would say to me, "Oh, let's come to Shetland. We want to see orcas." And you're a bit like, you just need a big bit of luck to be here at the time of year when they end up on our tight in at the coastline.
You've just got to come and hope for the best, I suppose.
Yeah, you have. The best thing if you're going to come to Shetland is don't come for orcas. Come to see the otters, the seabirds, the wildlife, the beautiful seascapes, the wildflowers, and then just hope the orcas turn up while you're here.
Well, look, it's been fascinating talking to you, Richard. So,
Yeah, no, good to meet you, Jack. Very good.
Shetland is an open landscape with windswept hills, so the wildlife that live here have got to be tough. And one bird that encapsulates this is the great skua, or locally known as the bonksy. So they're just like dinosaurs. They've got this prehistoric look to them, that velociraptor face. And of course they are very predatory. They'll go for a variety of prey, including puffins. So this is a territorial display, and it's showing to the other bonksies that it's the biggest, that it's puffed up, it's calling out loud, and it just goes to show that knowing a little bit about behaviour can go a long way. You don't have to know everything about the animal, but just knowing little tidbits are really going to improve your photography. So in these conditions, you've got bright, harsh sunlight. This means dark shadows and very contrasty colours. So in actual fact, a more overcast day is actually better because you get more even lighting, and subjects that are darker and subjects that are lighter will show up much better. Perspective is crucial with wildlife photography. The vast majority of us take pictures standing up. And again, this can look okay, but if you get lower down, if you get to their viewpoint, it can transform your images. So what are we looking for today then, Bryden?
Well, today we're going to go and I'm going to take you down to the Merlin hide I've been working on. So Merlins, as you'll probably know, Merlins are a fairly rare breeding bird in the British Isles, and in Shetland there's only about 30, between 30 and 40 pairs actually. So
That few?
that few. It's a very rare breeder, and you require a Schedule 1 licence to photograph them, to work on them at the breeding site, and they're very, very, well, you'll know how skittish Merlins are. All raptors tend to be. Merlins especially so, and it's essential to have a Schedule 1 licence to work on them. Working in a hide on them, you're maybe 30, 40, 50 yards from the nest watching them. And yeah, it's a real privilege to see that behaviour between the parents and the chicks.
And it's not as simple as just walking up to the hide and getting stuck in, is it?
No, that's right. What we have to do is we do walk-ins and walk-outs. So to get down to the hide, it's absolutely essential that we have somebody walk us down. So we have the three of us will go down, get you in the hide, get you all set up, and then that person leaving you in there. And that gives them, it basically tricks them into thinking that you've left. And it's pretty amazing how quickly they settle down. As soon as that person goes out of line of sight over the ridge, they settle down really quickly. We got to be very, very cautious in how we introduce the hide. So you're talking about several weeks of moving hides, and from when you actually start on the site, you're talking about several weeks before you're actually in a shooting position.
So a lot of planning's going into this.
It's
not just rock up, get your hide.
It's a really specialist assignment, really exciting, it's a privileged assignment. But first off, I would introduce the hide to the site. Very often I'll just actually take the hide, leave it sort of in the area, maybe at least 150 yards or more from the actual nest site. A few days to a week later, I'll go back and I'll move the hide a little bit. I'll put it in its first position, usually about 3 stages before I'm actually shooting. You know, you just move it give it a few days to let them settle, and it's not only them getting used to the hide moving that sort of 3 positions, it's also you coming and going from the site. They kind of build a tolerance to you and can see that you're obviously not a threat. You come and you go and nothing happens to the nest. So yeah, you've got to be very, very careful.
Sounds good. Well, got me excited. Let's go get to this hide.
Let's do it, yeah.
So wildlife photography conjures up ideas of people waiting in hides for hours and hours. But why do we use hides, Bryden?
Well, the beauty with hides is you can observe bird behaviour totally naturally. I mean, this assignment, for example, a merlin at the nest site, there's no way it would come anywhere near. It would just constantly be alarming if we were in a hide. So it gives us, as we talked about there, once we trick them that someone's left the hide, it all just starts to become natural for them again, because they have no idea we're in here, and it allows us to observe and photograph them just completely naturally without them knowing we're here. So it's perfect to get the real natural behaviour of them.
And presumably, obviously, we're working with merlins today, but anyone could set a hide up for most wildlife, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's certain species, some species of mammal and bird that obviously need a license to photograph. But yeah, I mean, it could be a hide in your garden. It can be a hide in your local park. Yeah, I can hear it. Actually sounds that she's coming in now. Sounds that she's coming back.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Look at that.
It's probably a meadow puppet chick or a skylark chick.
So is she bringing back food fairly regularly for them?
Yeah, usually maybe every 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, the male does all the hunting, and she'll do a little bit more of the hunting as the chicks get older. But in the early stages, he does all the hunting. He brings it back to her. She goes off and meets him, and then brings it in. Some pairs behave slightly differently, but these guys have only once, in our visits to the hide, I've only once seen the male at the actual nest. She seems to do the majority of the actual feeds. One of the reasons I find it so amazing, such a privilege to work in the hide, when you're out in the countryside, I mean, the English countryside, for example, you might be lucky if you catch a fleeting glimpse of a merlin flying low across a field, but here you can actually watch them, just incredible behaviour and just photograph them.
It's the first time I've ever seen a merlin, and they are just phenomenal.
They're beautiful little things, they really are.
Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this vid, why not check out this other video right here? If you can, please subscribe to the channel, only takes a couple of seconds and it really helps me out. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.